Hey, welcome back. This has got to be my last episode. I'm starting to get lightheaded because it's so hot in here. Oh, it's so hard for me. My life is so hard. Come at me. Ah! Come on, we can do this. I forgot. Ooh, nice. That was nice. Good job, Mario. This is an interesting thing. I don't know if I mentioned this, but I didn't post a video that I did. It was a Banjo-Kazooie video, and it was the first one I did in a week, so you would notice, like, I skipped a bunch of jiggies or whatever, because I just didn't post that episode. I do that once in a while. I think I've maybe done that 3 or 4 times, where like I watch something back and I'm like, I don't like this. I was talking about I did this VBS thing. VBS is Vacation Bible School. It's something that like every church does during the summer, where just a bunch of kids come to the church and they do like a lesson with them for the whole week. It's like a summer camp for church, except you go home at night, obviously. And I did it when I was a kid, and the church that I'm at right now, my mom's always kind of been like very involved with the kids. She's a very good, nurturing, like loving person. So she's really good with kids, and she's always been like a leader of the children ministry, they call it. So she asked me to help, and I helped with the slideshow. And this is kind of what I talked about before, and I guess I'll try it again, but I'll do a better job. I just felt weird. I don't feel super comfortable around kids. I think that's a good thing. Like, maybe I shouldn't. I did an episode where I did talk about like being falsely accused of things, and how like really is like one of my biggest fears. So obviously that's why I don't hurting a kid is like the worst thing you could ever do. And so if you're just never around kids, nobody could ever accuse you of anything, because I'm like, I wasn't even there. I don't know. Maybe I won't post this video either, but this is such an awkward thing to talk about. I don't know why who cares? Nobody's watching. I don't know. Maybe now that I'm working for the government, they're gonna like watch all my videos. They're gonna find my videos somehow and be like, oh, he was awkward when he talked about this, so we gotta fire him. But I'm even awkward talking about this. The reason is because I don't want you to think like I'm a bad person, like I would ever. I would never, obviously. But like, it's such a weird thing. Like, why even thinking about it? Like, just don't even think about it. But like, the reason why you have to think about it is because you have to be looking. You have to be kind of protecting the kids too. Like, you have to be looking at other people and being like, was that guy gonna hurt that kid, or is that guy gonna kidnap them or something? Because I don't know. Maybe it's because I listen to this true crime podcast, and they always talk about like, oh, you gotta keep your eyes out for these people, and like they're gonna try to hurt a kid, and you gotta. It would be nice to be a hero, to like be like, hey, I see what you're doing. You're going to jail, mister. And then everybody praises you like, oh, Anthony was the guy who found the kidnapper. So once you're thinking about it, you're thinking like, oh, wait a minute. What if other people are looking at me like that? I mean, I'm like a quiet guy. Maybe they're like worried that I'm gonna hurt a kid because like I'm so quiet and I'm not saying anything. Like, who's that weird guy? He doesn't have any kids. He's just here. The only reason I was comfortable doing it, obviously, is because my mom was there. So I'm like, okay, I'm just helping my mom, and I go and I do the slideshow and then I leave, and then that's it. But like, I would never teach kids. That like, to be a teacher. Maybe if I had kids, I might. But definitely being, I don't know. And I think that's a good thing. I don't think single guys should ever be around kids, ever, right? We could just make that a rule. A lot of good stuff would. But I don't know. Married guys do bad stuff just as often, too, so. I mean, a lot of the true crime stuff that I listened to, the one I just listened to today was a married couple, and they did this horrible, like the horriblest things you could ever imagine to like teenage girls, and it was the wife, too. She was doing it. So it's like, married people are just as bad. Right? But I don't know. I don't have any reason to ever be around a kid. I guess my nephew, I do feel awkward around them too, but it's just because, well, I'm awkward around them because I don't talk a lot to them, and I'm like worried that they're gonna think I'm weird. But I don't know. I guess it is a good thing to just, but it's not really. It's a good thing for people to be on alert around kids and be like, okay, let's protect the kids. Just when you're around kids, is always thinking like, okay. But you don't want to do that too much, because then you turn into a crazy person like me who just never talks to anybody and never is around kids ever. What do I do with this key? Oh, my nose. Yeah, I think I talked about that before, but definitely my biggest fear in the whole world is being falsely accused, obviously. Because what do you do in that situation? Anything you do is like, I would get so nervous and be like, I didn't do anything, but then people would be like, well, that's what you would do if you were. Yeah, I talked about that before. But people would be like, well, I mean, obviously that's what he would say if he did it. And kids, I don't know. I mean, we should always, like, trust kids and like, but sometimes kids, they can just say random stuff. Like, they can be stupid and just, I don't think a kid would ever, I don't know. I think this is the territory I got into where I'm like, I don't want to post this video, but I'll try it again. I don't think a kid would ever make something up like, oh, this person, like, touched me inappropriately. Like, where would they even get that idea? Maybe they saw it on TV somewhere, but what kind of, I don't know. Like, what kid shows, I don't know. Well, kid shows do kind of talk about that, but they're like, make sure you stranger danger and all that stuff. But kids do just kind of like, if they see something on TV, they'll be like, oh, I'm a Ninja Turtle. Sometimes they just make like random crazy stuff up. And what if they're just like, oh, I saw this episode of Smart Guy where he does a video in the basement and he's like the guy asks him to take his shirt off. Do you remember that episode? I remember that one. He's on like a surfboard or something. Every sitcom in the 90s had an episode like that where it was like the kid gets into a situation where a guy like brings them into their basement and is like, why don't you do this thing? And then the kid's like, no, I'm not supposed to do this. And then it's like, it was a very special episode. Can I kick you in my party? Yes. It's the bomb bet. Oh, bomb bet. I was thinking goon bet was the. Okay. Cool. So I guess that's the note. Did I talk about that? Okay. Was it awkward? Yes. But was it? Are you worried that I'm one of the bad guys? I hope not. Now that I put that in your head, you're like, well, wait a minute. So that's why I don't want to talk about it. But why would I talk about it if I was a crazy person who was doing horrible things? Why would I even bring it up? But it is just, I don't know. Part of it is people never used to really think about this kind of thing. And that's why there were so many true crime things about like, oh, these kids got kidnapped, like they were hitchhiking and they got murdered. And now we're overprotective of kids because we're like, oh, I heard this story about this kid who walked outside for 2 seconds and a guy came up and drove and picked him and put him in the car and they never saw him again. So I can never let my kid out of my sight. I don't know. If I had a kid, I would be worried about that. And I was watching this video about the Larry Nassar guy. It's just awful. Like, he did this thing for so long and everybody covered it up. And I'm going to save. Like, what would I do if I had a kid and that happened to them? Oh, it's so awful. Oh no, shoot, I didn't do it. That's the problem. I mean, we watch so many of these videos that we think that this is a common thing. But it's really not. Right? It's not more common than, like, murder. I don't know, but maybe it is. I don't know the statistics on it. Like a kid getting kidnapped or something. But you hear about it and you're just like, oh my god. Even if the risks are low, I mean, even if the chances are low, like the risk is so high that like I can't risk it. It would be the worst. I would want to kill myself if that happened to my kid. Or what if that happened to my nephew? It would be, I don't want to say unbearable, but like even for me, like, so I can't even imagine my brother. So then obviously you want to be overprotective, but I don't know what I'm talking about. What's even the point of what I was saying? So I don't like being around kids, and I think that's a good thing. I think the best thing to do is just always, like, we should take our cues from accountants and have generally accepted principles of how to act around kids. I know it's hard because you're like, you don't want to be thinking about all this stuff when you're around people. But, like, we are always thinking about stuff anyway. Like, if someone has a a pimple, and so like when you go up to them, you're like, oh, okay, don't mention the pimple. Like we're always thinking about stuff when we're interacting with people. So and the benefit of thinking about this is to avoid child death. So like it's a good thing to be thinking about. If this is the only thing you're thinking about, and you're just like walking around telling people like, oh, your pimple's stupid and your haircut's dumb, like I would take that person over, right? Like a person who cares about kids so much and who's like, he uses all of his brain power to care about kids, and he kind of doesn't use any brain power for any of the other social cue stuff, like worrying about pimples. That will be a brain well spent. Time well spent with your brain is to be thinking about kids and like protecting them and being like, okay, that guy, why did he do that? That's kind of weird. I don't know, but then you get the thing of like sometimes people talk to kids and you're like, that's kind of weird, but like it's not illegal to talk to a kid, but like should I be a little bit... Well, so okay, my point was like generally accepted accounting principles, GAAP. So we should have generally accepted kid principles, or how about GAAP kids? That's funny. So we have GAAP and then we have GAAP kids. Generally accepted principles for kids. And so these principles are like, okay, a kid should never be left alone with anybody other than a parent, or other than a parent, I guess. But then we need more principles to be like, okay, but sometimes parents abuse kids, so another obvious principle could be like, if a kid ever says anything weird to you, immediately report it to somebody of authority, a police officer, something, anything, principal, teacher. Like if a kid at VBS came up to me and was like, I don't feel comfortable around Mr. Whatever, then immediately the procedure is, okay, I gotta tell somebody. And just like with GAAP, sometimes people don't follow the rules, but if we have them in place, then it's better, right? Does this make sense? Okay, I came to a better place today than I did last time, so I'm gonna post this video, I think. Generally accepted principles for being around kids. I'll try to come up with some more. They're kind of obvious, but like the accounting rules are everything's obvious, but you have to put them down. Everything's obvious all the time, but then all this bad stuff happens, like Larry Nassar, and he was doing all this stuff and the kids were like... So that's another thing, like Larry Nassar was alone with these kids. Should have never been the case, ever. Nobody should ever be alone. And if it's a girl, there should always be another woman. And maybe girls should just always have women doctors. It's weird that Larry Nassar was a... Like, just be the doctor for the boys. Why does he have to be the doctor for the girls, too? And he can just tell, like, his assistant, who's a woman, to do the procedures or whatever. Like, is he really a genius with his fingers? Like, he can't teach it to a woman how to do it? The Larry Nassar thing was kind of confusing to me. It seemed like what he was... Anytime a girl reported abuse, Larry Nassar would just say like, oh, that's just part of my doctor stuff. Like, that's just what us doctors do. It's like a special procedure where I touch them inappropriately and it makes them feel better. Like, this girl just didn't understand that that's what we were doing. And then the police were just like, oh, okay, he's a doctor. He must know what he's talking about. And then they just stopped investigating. And it was ridiculous. That would have never happened if we had GAAP kids. Okay? Generally accepted kid principles around kids. That could be, I mean, we could have a million principles, just keep making them. One of them can be a girl's doctor can never be a man. I'm fine with that. Everybody can be fine with that. Who would not be fine with that? It would be weird if you're not fine with that. Or if for some weird reason your doctor has to be a man, then a woman, like your mom or your sister, older sister, or whatever, has to be in the room the whole time. Can't leave, ever. That's the rule. Generally accepted kid principles. Ooh, okay. I guess that's it for today. I feel like I went way over. Okay. Okay, I did a better job today talking about that, so good. And everybody have a good day, and follow the GAAP rules. Be a good person. Do the right thing. Report abuse or whatever. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.